This lecture covers material from Chapter 8. We are continuing our discussion on retail site location. And today we're taking a much closer look at how retailers choose a specific geographic area to locate their stores. And then we'll also talk about specific sites within a geographic area. So the first topic we're going to cover today is factors for evaluating areas. So this is where we're trying to decide which city or county or state or part of the nation to locate our retail store in. So when we evaluate different areas, we start by looking at population. And there are many ways to find the population of an area or areas when you're choosing where to locate your retail store. Two places I always check are the Census Bureau data and then the tapestry data that we discussed in Chapter 4 to make sure the area fits with our target market. Another thing to look at is what we call the metropolitan statistical area data or the micropolitan statistical areas. So a metropolitan statistical area is a core urban area with 50,000 or more people that live there. And the area is going to have a high degree of economic and social integration. So the metropolitan statistical area are mostly large cities. And so people might live in surrounding communities, but then commute into the central business district to work. Something to note about metropolitan statistical areas is that they can consist of several counties, and they can cross state lines. So it's not as simple as just saying the city of Atlanta, right? So it could span into the suburbs or additional counties around that area. In the United States, we have 381 metropolitan statistical areas. So there are quite a few of them across the country. I also want to address quickly the micropolitan statistical area. A micropolitan statistical area also has about 50,000 or more inhabitants, but these are areas that are located over 100 miles from a large city. These areas are often home to production and manufacturing facilities, and there are over 500 of them in the United States. So Milledgeville is actually a micropolitan statistical area. And so, again, it doesn't just stay within the city of Milledgeville. It includes a lot of the surrounding counties, but there's over 54,000 inhabitants living in this area, over 100 miles from Atlanta, which is the metropolitan statistical area, and then a high amounts of manufacturing facilities, production, agriculture, etc. So depending on what type of retailer you are, this data can be really important in helping you decide where to locate. So all of those different factors are kind of wrapped up into population, which is one of the most important factors that we use when we're evaluating areas in which to locate the retail store. The second factor we look at when we're evaluating areas are the economic conditions. And so economic conditions are important because we do need to examine the area's level of population and employment. And then we also need to look at the growth patterns of population and employment in that area. Growing employment means that there could be an opportunity for long-term profitability for the retailer. A high level of employment often indicates higher spending power for that area. So if we see that employment is growing, then we can assume that people do, have jobs, and so they have some discretionary income to spend. So that can help us determine where to locate. The third factor that we use when we are evaluating areas is competition. Small towns with limited competition can provide great opportunity for success. So if there's no other retailer like you, obviously that could be a factor to tell you where to locate. Some retailers might look for a little bit of competition, and then we talked about that in the discussion boards for Chapter 7, why you might want to locate near your competition. So either way, competition can be an important factor. The next factor that retailers look at when they are evaluating specific areas is the strategic fit. So this is looking at the consumers in your target market and making sure that the consumers meet the right demographic and lifestyle profile. So, toy stores operate in areas with families that have children. because obviously they are going to be the people looking for toys. Bass Pro Shops tend to open where people are very into outdoor activities and spend a lot of time in the outdoors. So just looking at the lifestyle profiles of the people who live in an area can help you determine if there's going to be a strategic fit with your target market. And then the last factor that you have to consider when you're evaluating areas in which to open a retail store are, of course, the operating costs. And these do vary by area and are very important to consider. So a larger metropolitan area might have a lot higher cost in terms of rent or advertising or operating, but they're also going to bring in higher sales, hopefully. So, there's some pros and cons. There's different things to look at there, but operating costs definitely should impact where you're going to locate. It's obviously a lot more expensive to operate downtown Atlanta compared to downtown Milledgeville. So depending on your goals there, that's important. Another thing to consider with operating costs is that there are, or could be, some local, state, and regulatory costs there, or some legal costs that could be incurred in specific areas. So those are the 5 factors that we consider when we're evaluating areas of the country or world in which we want to locate. So this wraps up part 1 of the Chapter 8 lecture. When we get to part 2 of the Chapter 8 lecture, we're going to look at very specific site factors. So that's what's coming next.